Yeah, this is going to be a long one.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy.
Good morning.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
The future. He came from the future. And so do I.
But you said that he wasn't human, that he was some other kind of being.
Another world and another time.
Your papers, please.
After he's stalked, we must get rid of him immediately.
So you found us.
What is it trying to tell us?
No strings, no catch. You own everything.
Now stay tuned to ROCKFLUX.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
And finally, we have arrived at the moment of truth. Finally, we arrived. Yeah, I think that was the longest bit of intro sound bites that we've had so far to date. It is 4:03 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Tony Caravan coming to you live on February 8th, the calendar year 2022. Yeah, it's the future, right? It's hard to believe, right? It's really hard to believe. Anyway, today's show.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff to go over. A lot of stuff to cover today. It's a free flow of consciousness. I don't have a script in front of me. I realize that the word resist is on the screen twice. However, some things need to be said twice. And there was some I was going to do. And, I was going to add something because I saw something on the Liz Wheeler show, which if you anybody who knows who she is, and there was she retweeted a thing, and then I retweeted it on my locals channel. Originally appeared on her locals channel. I don't know if that's where she's her show's coming from or not. I mean, obviously my shows are sometimes go as long as 2 hours. This one I don't think is going to go that long. But I don't, that's something you'll have to investigate. Now, what I'm looking for is the clip. I have a copy of her thing. And like usual, I made a copy of this thing. I know I look like an idiot. I'm just staring into space. I'm actually looking through my files, and I'm trying to figure out what I called this thing. And where is it? What did I call it? Let's see. Come on. I'm sorry for wasting your time, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate it. It's got to be here. I put it in the folder. I clearly recall putting it in the folder. I'm just going to have to go through these one by one. There aren't that many things in my live folder that I use, so it's got to be here. I just can't remember. I just named it quick. And then I went in and got my coffee, so it's like while I was doing that, I guess my brain got blended. Let's see here. We're getting close. We're over halfway through. Found it. That didn't take long. Okay. Now, I'm going to put this up. I'm going to get rid of my little thing for a moment now. My title card. And this is my retweet of her tweet or her thing. I have no idea why it's a certain invisibility to it. So the gist of this is I put, this is my reply, kind of my repost of this. I put Joe Rogan is the man who sold the world. Like that David Bowie song. The man who sold the world. Listen to that song if you get a chance. And there's a letter here which I'll read in a second, but let me just read my thing first. I said, he already proved himself by taking a knee. He missed his historic moment. So to @Liz Wheeler, who originally posted this letter from Rumble, wherever she got it from, or we don't need him on Rumble or anywhere anymore, right? And then it's just the link to this letter, which I'll enlarge because I realize it's probably too small to read. And since I'm only going to show this once, and the corporate address of Rumble I don't think is important. So this apparently, and let me move this to move this up to the top so it doesn't seem to be being interfered with by other text. Okay. All right. Got that? And apparently this post, wherever it did come from, this Chris Pavlovsky perhaps maybe originally, I don't know. 2,000 comments, 17,000 people, 60,000 likes. All right. And just to give Liz Wheeler credit, I don't know the woman personally, but just to give her credit. Okay. So this is February 7th. That would have been yesterday. And this says, Joe Rogan Experience, Dear Joe, we stand with you, your guest, and your legion of fans in desire for real conversation. So we'd like to offer you 100 million reasons to make the world a better place. How about you bring all your shows to Rumble, both old and new, with no censorship for $100 million over 4 years? This is our chance to save the world. And yes, this is totally legit. Chris Pavlovsky, CEO, Rumble. Now, the key here is, and I'm not going to dwell on this for the entire show. I just want to get this out of the way. That's why I'm doing it first. Where he says, this is our chance to save the world. No, it isn't. Joe Rogan is the man who sold the world. His moment in time came, like I wrote in my piece addressing this issue up here. In other words, he already proved himself by taking a knee. Do you understand? He missed his moment in time. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. All right? Now, that's not to say I watched a little bit of Joe Rogan yesterday, not out of curiosity, just normally the way I do, because sometimes he's had some guests on, and yesterday he had Randall Carlson on, and they were talking about some things that were of interest to me. Okay? And his response to this thing should have been not, I'm going to allow you, Spotify, to put disclaimers on my videos. No, Spotify, I'm not going to, every time I have a so-called controversial guest, quote, in quotation marks, I'm going to follow it up with some other liar or somebody. Like I told you before, there are not two sides to every story. Do you understand that? Now, I see what Pavlovsky and Rumble want. Yeah, they want 100 million. They want Rogan's 11 million viewers to come over. All right? It's mercenary there. It's okay, buddy. I understand. I'm all for free market capitalism and, and anyone, and certainly for freedom of speech. I think it's pretty clear. So I understand his motivation, but you just picked the wrong guy at the wrong time. Joe Rogan already proved who he is, and let's just get that straight. And there is no defense. See, just like there are not two sides to every story, meaning Rogan doesn't have to bring somebody. If somebody comes on and says a thing, and some woke person says, "Oh, that's controversial," so he is the following day put on somebody else who's going to be woke or something, right? Or has or goes against it. No, some things are just things. Some truths are just truths, right? In other words, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created free, right? And endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. And among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Something along that line. Most people should have that right on the tip of their tongue. The point of the matter is certain truths are just truths. So you don't have to bring on somebody from some mainstream media or some pundit from some off-the-wall rag who's going to, say, "Oh, that's not true." It's just like the climate crisis and all that stuff. 0.004 CO2 is a trace gas in the atmosphere. Let me say it for the umpteenth time. The composition of the Earth's atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 0.9% argon. That means 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere. And then there's some trace gases. And among those trace gases are water vapor, a little bit of methane, a little bit of CO2. A real little bit of CO2, 0.004 CO2. Okay? And let's get another thing straight. Fossil fuels are organic. Literally organic. They are organic matter. They are organic. They come from the earth. They are organic. All right? And when you drive a Tesla car, an electric car, it's more than likely, and you watch this in the next hour up here, I guess I should say. Watch my camera too, as you'll see big trucks barrel-assing up that thing. They're on their way to 2 coal-powered electric plants. And so when you drive your Tesla or some other brand of electric car, it's running on coal or natural gas, and chances are that natural gas was fracked. All right? And that 0.004% CO2, which should go up to 0.005, quite frankly, we'd have better crop yields. We wouldn't have to rely on these GMO messing with the seeds, right? And it's CO2 that makes the trees green. So it gives you vegans and vegetarians your food, right? And a byproduct of all of that stuff, it gives us that oxygen. Okay? There are certain inalienable rights, just like there are certain truths that are just truths. And Joe Rogan is the man who sold the world. At this moment in time, he had an opportunity to do something, and you know what he did? He took a knee. He caved. He caved instead of, like I say, resist. Ignore the media. Everything you know is wrong. Everything you've heard. I mean, this has gotten to the point, right? People just do not understand Socio-Economic-Geo-Politics, which is the title of this show. People don't understand Socio-Economic-Geo-Politics. And I put into my chat, kick it off, Joe Rogan is the man who sold the world. End of story. He already took a knee. He goes to Rumble. I don't care if he goes to Rumble or not. And if he has guests like Randall Carlson on or somebody like that, yeah, I'll watch the show. But the point of the matter is pretending like he's some savior and he's like, in other words, this cult of personality thing is developing now around him. It switched from Trump. No one man, all right, human being is going to make your life better, happier, fuller, okay? Unless that happens to be your spouse or your family member, in other words, someone your friends, your family, okay? But no stranger, no politician, no news reader, nobody on TV or in movies or whatever. And people have to wake up to that truth and wake up to the other thing that certain truths are just truths. And there aren't two sides to every story. Sometimes a thing is what a thing is. Joe Rogan took a knee. Do you know why? Because he has some kind of contract with Spotify that basically has put him in that compromised position. And he has daughters, or a daughter at least. I think I heard him speak at least about one daughter. I don't know if he has two. I know he's married. He just moved to Texas fairly recently. He probably has a big mortgage, a big house, a big property. Okay, he has this ridiculous lifestyle where he, does all of these things that obviously cost tons of money. All right? And he wants to maintain that lifestyle, right? And have those material things and keep his family, in the bling bling. So he took a knee. He could have came out and said, no, you're not going to put a disclaimer up in front of my show. And no, I'll have whoever I want to on my show and the way it's always been, and I'll talk about whatever I want to talk about as long as it's within the legal limits of the law. All right? That goes without saying, right? But I'm not going to have a, equal time. In other words, I was the general manager of a radio station. People who watch this show know that. And in the old days, if you had somebody on who presented a political opinion, all right, people were allowed to have differing opinions. Today you can't. But someone had a political opinion, you had to offer the other side equal time. Well, the FCC dropped that. So here's my question to you. I wanted you to think about how absurd this is. Social media and their terms of service basically have violated the First Amendment because they claim, we're private companies, which is not true. They're publicly traded on the stock market. And a private company can't commit murder or theft. If they do, them or their officers or their employees go to jail and they get prosecuted. In many cases, the companies themselves can be sued, broken up, as if they were involved in monopolistic practices, et cetera, et cetera. A private company does not put you above the law. And the Constitution and the First Amendment, that's the law of the land. And I watch all you people out there, and you just say, and on both sides of the aisle, ideologies and political parties constantly yammering about, well, they're public companies, and I guess we have to. Their terms of service, you sign. No. A public or private company, or private companies, I meant to say. A private company or a public company cannot break the law. Okay? It doesn't matter what's written on a piece of paper. If I write a piece of paper and it says on it here, you can break into the neighbor's house, right? And you break into the neighbor's house, the police catch you, and you say, well, he gave me a piece of paper, said it was okay, I could break into the neighbor's house. and I'm not that neighbor, and I have nothing to do with that, blah, blah, blah. That person goes to jail for breaking and entering and probably a couple other things they did wrong. Right? In other words, the First Amendment is the First Amendment. It's the law of the land. You can't create a term of service. The beginning of the First Amendment starts out, I've said this 1,000 times, Congress shall make no law. Those are the first words in the First Amendment. So not even Congress, that is the body that crafts the laws of the land, okay? This is how much the Founding Fathers were hell-bent on this idea of freedom of speech, okay? That they literally said, Congress shall make no law. Not even Congress. So why would some private company somehow have the right to do something that not even Congress can do? Right? Well, it's the terms of service of their private companies. You don't get it. Listen to me. Congress can't even do it. There would have to be an amendment to the Constitution, like in the days of Prohibition. In other words, they couldn't just say, okay, you can drink now after Prohibition. No, they actually literally had to pass an amendment abolishing the previous amendment. So the only way you can get rid of freedom of speech in this country is if there would be an amendment passed that abolished the First Amendment. No terms of service is not an amendment to the Constitution. All right? Joe Rogan took a knee to the woke crowd. Okay? And that's all he had to say was, hey, I have freedom of speech in this country and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what kind of contract he signed with Spotify, but man, and who his lawyers are, but they must be really, I mean, he must have found some dime store lawyer ambulance chaser. Because if he doesn't have an ironclad contract and has to take a knee, and did he really think he would lose his fans? People aren't tuning in. People don't care. People tune in to shows like that because of the subject matter. And you know that. Even your show, if Liz Wheeler, if you're watching, if you're talking about some thing that is of no interest to the average person, and you have loyal listener base, watcher, regular viewers, and you start talking about a certain thing, well, a person's going to probably watch the first couple of minutes of it and go, I'm not interested in that too much. I'll see what she says tomorrow or her next podcast, webcast, whatever. That's just the way it goes. The same with Rogan. Right? All these guys, Tim Pool, that guy Lex Fridman. I'm a YouTuber. I cut the cord to TV like I have the bottom of my screen down here. Ignore the media. That's the step. Resist. That's how you resist. All right? Ignore the media. If you don't like something, you don't watch it. You don't have to watch it. But the point of the matter is, why would you if the FCC doesn't allow broadcast stations, in other words, if CNN doesn't have to can say whatever they feel like it and doesn't have to bring on some other person who has a differing opinion than CNN, right? Why would Joe Rogan do that? And why would he say he's going to do it and, publicly? Do you see what I mean? So, he not only took the knee by trying to turn Spotify into YouTube by saying, I think it's okay. It's great. They'll put a disclaimer in front of my thing. I'm all for it. And if I have somebody on controversial, I'll put somebody on. Why? Why would you do that? And do you realize that makes your show that makes you and your show, have less integrity? Because that means you're putting on guests just for the sake of bending a knee to some, small group of people that have seemed to have captured the media machine and are, loud voices right now. that are putting pressure on people, but in reality, their numbers are very small compared to the population of the country. No one should be standing up for Joe Rogan. As far as I'm concerned, if Joe Rogan has a decent guest on, I'll watch it. I don't care where it is. I watched a clip on YouTube. I don't even go over to Spotify to watch it. I don't even use Spotify in that way. I have some of my own songs on Spotify. I've got like 50 beat poetry tracks I've written. I've written 10 books. You know, I'm not nobody. And even if I was nobody, all of our opinions matter, no matter who you are. You can see there's still snowbanks out there, camera 2, if you look up at the window up there in the corner. We're supposed to get snow today here. I posted a video, you might see it because it's in a lot of places, of my crazy attic. It's only like 60 seconds long. We were supposed to get thunderstorms this week. I don't know if we are or aren't. I fixed my chair yesterday, and I'm going to do something right now and just make sure and see. And I think it's still slipping. It's one of those violations of the law of physics. So I think people have got it all backwards. And like I say, this is going to be an attack on Rogan. You know, more power to him. And you backed yourself into a corner. And there's probably no way out of it. Just move forward and hopefully this will die down. But if it's anything like what happened with Trump, you know, everyone kept figuring, well, sooner or later they'll just like move, you know, move on to a different topic. But, you know, somehow you've like taken the foreground. So I don't know. Good luck, man. Good luck. I don't know if they're going to, you know, let it go. It's a news story. Anything that they can put, any content they could put on that's going to keep you tuned in during the commercials, the commercial breaks, they'll do. And remember, okay, because so many people just don't get this part of it. The true marionettes are the media and the politicians. All right? Their strings are being pulled by the corporatocracy. Big tech, big pharma, big ag, military contractors, the Federal Reserve, which I want to talk about a little bit today. And of course, big media / entertainment, which is like, you know, kind of like there's a double dose there. So it's not only just the media personalities and the news people their strings are being pulled, the news readers, but the media machine in general, the media entertainment machine, which is also the communist Chinese, are involved in that as well. They're all marionettes. Now, here's another thing. I'm going to switch topics right now, okay? You know, because I think I said what I wanted to say on that Rogan thing.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
All right. They've been telling us that it's no secret that there's inflation, all right? And there's no secret that there's joblessness in this country. The problem is the government has always fudged the numbers, okay? And to the degree in which they fudge the numbers has always been based on the closeness, how close they were to a primary election or, you know, elections in general, for some political motivation, right? But currently, the inflation numbers right now are being totally played down to a degree that it is unbelievable. Our inflation is higher than it was in like the 70s. In other words, and unemployment as well. In other words, what they're changing, they base their information on a select. Sometimes they do this with currencies too. They call it a basket of currencies. And they base inflation similarly is based on like a basket of like items that people purchase and the price of those items. And so, for so many years, you take this basket of items, consumer items, so to speak, and they base the inflation rate on how the price of those various items in that basket has gone up. Well, what they've done now, and I mean like now, like within this past year, they've changed the items in the basket to make the inflation rate look like it's very low. And so, in other words, they took items where the price literally doubled or close to doubled, and they just took that item out of the basket and put back in an item that didn't double, that might have only went up like 3 or 6% or something like that. And so you, the unsuspecting public, watching these news readers, why you are still connected to the cable, like I say, cut the cord, ignore the media. If you ignore the media, they go away. They literally go away. Because without viewership, the amount of money that they can get, their ratings, that's how their advertising rates are based upon. Remember, I was a creative director of an advertising agency, a general manager of a radio station, among other things I've done. I've been involved in publishing and everything else, and the entertainment business. But in these two instances, I'm speaking to you with firsthand knowledge, being the guy, okay? Who knows, right? Who would know the most and who was in charge and had direct knowledge of these kinds of things while I was in those key positions. So, if you stop watching television, news, for example, I don't care if you watch some stupid show, if you're into The Price is Right, watch it. I mean, I don't know who in their right mind would, but if you're into The Price is Right, watch the damn show, right? Whatever. What's his face still doing it now? I don't even know who's doing it, right? But anyway, if you stop watching the nightly news, the ad rates for the news, because their ratings go down, the ad rates go down, which means the nightly news is suddenly running in a deficit. And the type of people that own these companies, because there's only like 5 major corporations that own most of the media now. And by the way,
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy.
Yeah, it's a communist conspiracy, not theory, communist conspiracy theory. The communists own real estate in the U.S., entertainment, media companies in Hollywood, news organizations. They have institutes on college campus that are influencers of young students. Okay, they're deeply involved in the stock market. Okay. Well, anyway, you have to choke off the funding of the media, and that's how you defeat them. You don't defeat them by tweeting and having these people vlogging and podcasting day after day talking about the media. In other words, they're creating themselves. The news is the news. Like what? The news has become the news. Well, point is, just turn it off. if you ignore the media, they eventually will go away. Oh, they'll be propped up from time to time, by the ideologues. But see, that's where it comes into part two. When you donate campaign financing, okay? Now, of course, when I say that the media and politicians are marionettes, okay, they're puppets of the corporatocracy, meaning big tech, Wall Street, big pharma, and all those, dirty players, right? That's all true. But politicians are also dependent upon you. In fact, many politicians, many populist politicians as of late, in the past couple decades, have received a lot of individual donations, and in some cases that have, superseded their corporate donations. So if you give $5, $10, $25, if you're foolish enough to give more than that, it's even worse, to a candidate. Now, I don't care who the candidate is and what your ideology is. All right? Where do you think that money goes to predominantly? It goes to the media. And in most cases, the media that are the same people that are like driving you up a wall. In other words, if you give $25 to the Trump campaign, that $25, part of that goes to like Rachel Maddow and Don Lemon. And you say, what? Yeah, it pays their salaries. Because the commercials, political commercials, especially around primary and election time, are on the media where they're thinking they're going to sway voters. But the fact of the matter is, again, I'm speaking from the perspective of an ad man, a guy who's worked on political campaigns. I worked on a national campaign for a very prominent congressman, was one of my many local politicians, by the way, but I also worked on products, right, and services. I was a creative director for an advertising agency, and prior to that, I was a general manager of a radio station. I've been involved in the media. Now, and I'm published. I was a publisher. Now, here's how it goes, and you know this deep in your heart of hearts. Would you feel strongly about your ideology, your beliefs, okay? You know that, right? You're not some wishy-washy, willy-nilly, right, person. You have strong beliefs. You watch things and you get outraged sometimes. I don't know why you watch it. Why torture or torment yourself? That's why I say you should just ignore the media. So you're watching some show somewhere. Somebody that you like, right? And agree with politically or ideology or something like that. And suddenly a commercial comes on and it's from the other side. You know what I'm saying? And they're like spouting out lies and crazy talk about all this, that, the other. It's political season. Now, what are you going to do? Well, your first thing is, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Probably going to get up, use the restroom, or go in the kitchen and get yourself a glass of water or make yourself a sandwich and then come back in. That commercial's not going to make you change your mind like, oh, wow, now that I saw that TV commercial or heard that radio commercial while I was stuck in traffic, I'm going to give up my support of this person that I've been supporting for the past 8 years or whatever, and I'm going to suddenly just switch and vote for the other one. You know that's not going to happen. Well, then why are you donating to political campaigns? because that money only goes to the media and to commercials. And that commercial money pays the Rachel Maddows of the world. Do you understand? And if you're somebody on the other side, it pays the salary of the other individual. But the money you give does not support the shows that you watch, because the lion's share of that money goes to the so-called opposition. So anyone who donates to a political campaign is a fool and is supporting the opposition and is supporting the media. Like I always say, it's so easy to fix this problem. I mean, Joe Rogan blew it. He's the man who sold the world because he was in a unique position at a specific moment in time that I don't think is going to rise again, that we'll have that moment in time again, where one guy had more viewers than all of the major cable shows combined. Do you realize that? And at that moment in time is when they decided to hit him because it scared the crap out of him. And you know what he did? He had his moment in time where he could have changed the world, like that guy from Rumble was trying to say. All right? You know, let's look at that ridiculous thing he said here. How about you bring all your shows to Rumble? This is our chance to save the world. And yes, this is totally legit. No, man. The time to save it is over. That moment came and went, and Joe Rogan blew it. He's the man who sold the world. And so now all that's left is for us to do nothing. You heard me right. To do nothing. That's what resist means. That's why I have it on here. See, resistance is doing nothing. See, if you ignore the schoolyard bully and you walk to the other side of the schoolyard, that bully loses their power. If you ignore the media, if you cut the cord, so to speak, and don't watch cable TV or network TV, they lose their power. Their power is based on viewership, and viewership's based on money. You see? You have to break the addiction. It's the same with social media. If you think, oh, Twitter bad, right? Well, if you think Twitter's bad, like I said to people, well, you don't have to close your account. Just stop using it. Don't argue on it. Don't give the people with the blue checks the power. You are empowering them. Do you see that? So the solution is not that you have to do something. The solution is you have to do nothing. I mean, can you resist? Do you have that strength, or are you addicted like some cigarette smoker or, you know, some addict? Right? I mean, you know, psychologists have said that social media is an addiction, but you've got to fight that addiction. Because that's the only thing left now that we can do, is to do nothing. And that means we know, we are no longer empowering these people. The same goes for politicians. Don't donate to their campaign funds. And you'll say, well, the other people will win. No, they won't. I'm getting emails from Adam Schiff, Joe Biden, the Trump campaign, and candidates I don't even know. I mean, my spam folder's it's not even my spam folder because it's just coming through. All these people are trying, like, donate, we do this. Right? Imagine Adam Schiff of all people. Well, the point of the matter is, it's the same thing. In other words, when you send Trump money, that money goes to the people who support Adam Schiff. And the people who are supporting Adam Schiff don't realize that the money that they give to Adam Schiff ends up going to commercials on Fox or something. So the answer is don't donate to any political candidate, because you're giving money to the other side. I mean, really, if you really wanted to, if you were pro-Trump, your best bet would be to donate to the Schiff campaign, or Nancy Pelosi. And if you were against, if you were pro-Trump, you would, or pro-Pelosi or Schiff, you would be donating to Trump. But I mean, you understand, when you donate to a candidate, the other side gets the money, because that's where the political ads go. They're not trying, I mean, yeah, they'll run a few on their own things, but that's like preaching to the choir. It doesn't, from an trust me, from being a guy involved in media and advertising, there's no value to that. But yeah, you spread a few commercials out there in general in case there's some random watchers, curiosity seekers. But the lion's share of that money goes to the opposition, which means when you donate political money to a campaign, you're giving it to the newsreaders, the announcers, the people you dislike, and the people who have destroyed this country. So again, do nothing and win. Two simple things, okay? Don't watch the nightly news, all right? They fall. Don't donate to any political campaign that the other guy hurts, not your guy. That's the way it is. You do nothing. That's resistance. You see? And you do the same thing with everything else. When somebody stands on the soapbox and says, you must do this and you must do that, just walk away. Just ignore them. Resist. Right? These people aren't in charge of your everyday life. There's certain things, in other words, that's not the purpose of government in a constitutional republic. This isn't a dictatorship. Somewhere along the line, people got things are out of whack. Just like I was trying to explain about the First Amendment. If Congress shall make no law, certainly some private company can't make a law. Terms of service have more power than the Congress? I mean, it's so obvious it's pathetic. And I don't need to hear some lawyer or somebody try to even argue that. It's like I said earlier, it's inarguable. Certain truths are true. All right? And there is no other side to the story. Right? That's it. A thing happens, it happened. And someone says, well, we need to look at the other side. There is no other side. All right? A fact is a fact. Okay? Now, if it's a crime of some kind, that's a whole different story. And if they want to go through some criminal proceedings in some court and let a jury of their peers deal with this. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about some criminal proceeding in some city or county, where some guy committed some local crime or county crime. We're talking about politics. And since when did politics become pop culture? And what's this obsession with the cult of personality of people involved in politics and media and entertainment? I mean, there are always fan clubs and things like that for people in the movies and music industry. Yeah, that's understandable. It was stuff for 13-year-old, 14-year-old girls. Put posters on your wall maybe when you were in junior high or high school. Okay? Yeah, I understand that. People are trying to figure out their identity, and who their role models are and stuff. But this show isn't targeted to those people. I'm talking to adults. You're acting like teens and tweens and high school kids. Cult of personality? Politics is pop culture? You're arguing day in, day out over the same issues? You know, it's like there used to be this woman on Laugh-In, that show half the people don't remember, and she used to say, boring, which was very annoying, you know. But, you know, it's good that it's annoying. Boring. Right? That's why I flip around YouTube and I watch, and it's like some of these shows. And that's what I'm thinking, and I'm seeing what their subject matter is for the day. And in my mind, it's like, boring. So I end up switching to watch some guy, fix something or weld something. I mean, anything but watching, Tim Pool or somebody else, even Dave Rubin talk about the same political nonsense. And I'll tell you what, I'm tired of promises by guys like Dave Rubin and everybody else. See, everybody's, I take on anybody on the table here, right? Put it all out on the table. So Rumble buys out locals. Rumble's had this thing up that said they would have live broadcasting, right, soon. But it seems to me that it's pay to play. And the minimum is like $10 a month. And I was watching a video by somebody who I guess paid at least the $10 or whatever the other day. And the video quality was like subpar. And I got a sneaky feeling that it's based on that stupid bandwidth numbers that are underneath, like if you pay $10, $25, $100. Because, the video quality just wasn't that good. And that was pay to play. Because for free, you can't broadcast. And on locals, you get, at the basic level, it's a pay to play, let's face it. And you get 5 30-minute videos. Well, I'm already at 52 minutes and 20 seconds. And I'm just starting to, get into that point where I'm pulling everything together to make my point. You need at least an hour, right? In a live broadcast, a half hour. And besides, on locals, it's not hooked up to where it works with anything. So like this screen you see of mine with all of this stuff, you can't do that on locals. All you do is use your stupid webcam. So unless I see some drastic changes on Rumble, I'm starting to think Dave Rubin, well, he did sell out. I mean, he did sell out. Having fun down there doing your little live videos from the dock. I was one of the first guys on locals. I was on there, I paid my monthly fee. I don't get any views. I've got a little tip jar thing there. I haven't even gotten a tip. I've tipped people. That's another thing. The prima donna concept of social media is like works against social media itself, right? And Rogan's always been like a prima donna type of guy. And there's a lot of people who are like that. They're prima donnas. They're too, like the whole concept of guys like me, like I was one of the founders of webcasting. And I'm not saying that because I want to be patted on the back or something. But the fact of the matter is, 25 years ago, I was broadcasting, webcasting, we called it. That was before there was even an iPod, before the Rio, the first one, before, right? Before the iPod, there was actually an MP3 player. And that's when Apple, decided, we got to get into that. Sorry, this chair and everything else. So I've been around this game for a long time ago, and I'm tired of doing it. But here's a.
Welcome to another Tony Caravan Live. Tonight I'll be doing something a little bit different.
That show is 20 years old. As an example, it was originally broadcast to over 20,000 people over the internet from my website. Okay? And it was in the format of real audio, which doesn't even exist anymore. All right? So don't tell me about this medium or any of this stuff. Many of the breakthroughs in in the internet there was a handful of us in the early 90s that were all like at this almost 24/7, and we were all sharing every time one of us would have a breakthrough and figure out, how to shorten some code to do something, shrink some kind of file to make it load faster, because we were using dial-up and stuff back then. All that kind of stuff. It was just open source sharing, right? Yeah, that's my history. And today we've got a bunch of prima donnas. We all spoke with each other. We didn't care. I currently have 0 concurrent viewers. 4:58 a.m. Eastern Time here in the former United States. Western civilization has fallen. Do you realize that? Joe Rogan is the man who sold the world, and some stooge from Rumble's offering him $100 million for taking a knee because he's hoping to gain those viewers of other things. And Joe Rogan, you blew it, man. You can't go back from certain things. See, Joe Rogan would have to come out today and say, I misspoke earlier. I'm not going to allow any disclaimers whatsoever on my videos, and whomever I choose to interview, I will not have any other person on, just to, go against what they say for the sake of pleasing some, censor or some lowly employee at Spotify. In other words, if the FCC doesn't even have that in their policy anymore, equal time, and if ABC News doesn't have to do it, and if CNN and MSNBC doesn't have to do it, why should Spotify have to do it? And why should some guy offer to do it and actually create precedents? That's why I'm saying he's the man who sold the world. Because not only did he take the knee, but he took us back in time, and he basically he's making precedents in social media that will have repercussions for years to come. There is no his position is indefensible. It's indefensible what he's done. He's copped out, he's sold out. Because what? He wants to have bling bling? He wants to make sure he could pay his mortgage? He hired an ambulance chaser lawyer who wrote a slipshod contract? Didn't give him, he doesn't have the right paragraphs in there that protect him? Remember, just like the political commercial by the opposition isn't going to sway you, his regular viewers are not going to leave him, right? People are watching content based on who the person is and what the subject matter is. You turn on the program. If it starts to get boring or it looks like it's about something stupid, you turn it off. Otherwise, you end up realizing, my God, I watched this thing for 3 hours. I can't believe it. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Right? That's how it works. We're all humans. We're the same thing. We all think alike. We got the same bioelectric brains. All right? What was Rogan thinking? Or is he just generally that type of sellout guy? It's too late, man. You blew it. Rogan blew it. He's the man who sold the world. It was that moment in time. It was a fluke. When that thing came out, that showed that he had 11 million views and he was getting more than like Hannity, Tucker, Maddow, and all these CNN. He was getting more views than all of them combined. That was the moment in time. And he decided, I'm not man enough. I can't carry this burden on my shoulders. I don't want to do the right thing and stand up for free speech. In fact, really, all he had to do was nothing. And if someone came to him and said, what about such and such, whatever, he should have said, I have no comment on that. Right? But instead, he went the complete opposite direction and made a video where he was basically on his knees saying, yes, I will allow them to put a disclaimer in front of my show or under my video. And if I have anybody who's the slightest bit controversial, I will allow them to put somebody else on. But what if the other person's a frickin' liar? Right? What if the other person doesn't even know? What are you going to have Greta on? Right? Who doesn't have the slightest idea that that we live on an oxygen or a nitrogen planet? Right? And that CO2 is a trace gas. We got volcanoes going off, that are like mad due to basically our weakened magnetic field. Right? And long-term solar cycles and stuff. This isn't like hooey. This is like science, hard science. All right? There are papers being written about it. There's serious discussions going on right now. There's nothing to do with CO2. January was freezing. February's just as freezing. It's good old-fashioned cycles of the planet. You live long enough, you live and learn, right? Snow was halfway up my house when I was a kid. The snow is halfway up people's houses this year. It's a cycle. Johnstown Flood in the late 70s killed 2,200 people. But they had a Johnstown Flood in the early part of the 20th century, and they had a Johnstown Flood in the 1800s. There have been hurricanes, ridiculous hurricanes and tornadoes. Tornado Alley's been around forever. Ask the indigenous people. Well, I don't know. I mean, look, before there was a city of Miami or Tampa or Orlando, right? Sarasota or the Key West, there were hurricanes. It's just that nobody lived there. It was swampland. I went through this once in another show. What do you think Disney built Disney World where he built it? Because he got the land really, really cheap. It was swampland. You used to go in the back of magazines when I was a kid, and you could buy like an acre of land in Florida for like $100 or stuff like that. Buy 10 acres, prime property, for $500 and stuff like that. They were selling, I remember there was like, in ranches out in the Midwest, there was for $500, $1,000, you could buy stuff. You know, some places 5,000 you could buy like a ridiculous amount of acres, hundreds of acres, $5,000. I still to this day think I bought some ranch out in the Midwest when I was younger. But I moved around so much and I've lost papers, and I've had an idiot that I was renting a building I had, and the place got totally destroyed because the guy, I don't even get into it. And so I can't even find the paperwork. I think I own like a bunch of acres of land somewhere out in the Midwest, but I don't even remember what state it was. It was just one of those weird deals, and at the time I had extra money, and I'm going like, you got to be kidding me. And I know they sent me the deed. I don't care. I'm retired, man. I don't want to own a ranch. I'm not going anywhere. I got enough keeping my roof from leaking. But, you know, people have to wake up to reality. You know, that's the thing that gets me.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
All right. Empty that carafe out, the last bit of bulletproof coffee. Been doing that thing, putting in a little bit of butter into the coffee. It just kind of smooth, it mellows it out. Doesn't necessarily lose the coffee flavor. You know, it's not like putting cream in coffee. I don't put much. I just put like a little tip of the spoon in there. But anyway, yeah. So I can't believe it. And when I saw that thing, you know, that I popped up, that thing from Rumble, $100 million over 4 years. This is our chance to save the world. Joe Rogan isn't going to save the world. All right? He's not going to save the world. He's just some dude. He's a stoner. He messes around with hallucinogens. He's into that fighting. His head's probably been beat so many times. I think he's not doing that anymore, but, you know, damage is done. Guy's going to save the world. He is a guy. There goes the trucks. Look at. You see that? Those are coal trucks going to fire, you know, to take coal to a coal-fired electric plant that basically provides electricity to electric cars. See, that's the part that cracks me up. It's like the vegans and the vegetarians. It's like, I'm pretty much a vegetarian, pretty much, just because because, you know, vegetables are way more healthy than the other stuff. And the price, like I was trying to say before about the economy, which I want to get into about we're being lied to. The price of meats and things like that are out through the roof. And they took them out of the basket that they used to talk about inflation. See, currently in this country, we're headed for a big financial crash. And it could be one of the type of crash that we may never recover from. Because less than half the people in this country right now are working, okay? We have a population that's aging, and we have a younger population that just doesn't seem to be interested in working at all. And we have an education system that seems to be more concerned with indoctrination and conditioning people than they are in teaching them, you know, life skills. In other words, educating them. And I know teachers, so this is firsthand, because they complain about it all the time. But just like Joe Rogan, they want to keep their job. So, you know, not many of them go public with it. right? Because they want to get their pension and they want to keep that house in the cul-de-sac, etc., right? And that SUV they have, and the kid and their kids in school, and send them to college. You see? You know, it's understandable how people and why people, not everybody is, you know, some true red, white, and blue patriot that will basically walk in there and say, you know, take this job and shove it, right? People don't do that stuff because they just, you know, in this world, what are you going to do? You say, take this job and shove it, and the next thing you know, you're out in the streets freezing because global warming never came. Man, it's freaking cold. I was watching another YouTube channel, some people who have placed, it's pretty far, you know, decently south, not south, but way further south than I am. And their water pipes are freezing. You know? And it's like, yeah, welcome back to the cycle of life. Everything's a cycle. You know, that's how it works, man. It always has. If you live long enough, you see it's a cycle. Grand cycles of the sun. Cycles of the planet, you know, short cycles, seasonal cycles, right? We even have human cycles, and, you know, all women can attest to that. You know, it's a cyclical existence. You know, that's what we are. You know, we're part of that whole chain of being. Everything's a cycle, right? Anyway, they're teaching kids this economy's on the verge of collapse. They lied to us about inflation. It's way, way higher. It's unsustainable. Okay? It's unsustainable. And if you're the type of person that goes out and shops, you know. You've seen. Here's the trucks. You've seen the prices go up. Yesterday morning, a friend of mine, I don't drive anymore. You know, I bought this house and I just live free, right? And just live my life. I grow, you know, for people who are new to this show, I have a backyard. Resist, stayed up. I have to move that down further. It doesn't need to be blocking my garden. Just a little bit of the way the business works here. All right. So I have this in my backyard, and so I could grow a lot of my food and all that stuff. So I'm happy, you know, living within my means and all of that jazz. Okay. I'm not monetized. And if I was monetized, I wouldn't make any money because I don't have enough viewers. So I'm here serving others. In other words, service to others instead of service to self. And the true marionettes are the media and politicians. And as I always say, it's all hypocrisy for profit. Okay? All right, that's that. Now, these people that get so obsessed with greed, right? And now they're trying, you know, the military contractors, they saw all that money being made by Big Pharma over the past couple of years. And they said, hey, it's our turn. Let's go Russia again. And let's do that Ukraine. And so they're putting all this, you know, movement and materiel over into Europe so that they could charge us, the taxpayers, right, billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, because there was, nothing going on, right? Right? And so these companies they've got payrolls, you know, their stockholders are going, hey, we need to make some money. Our stock prices have to go up. Let's get a war going, right? I mean, that's what those endless wars are all about. You didn't really think they were about freedom or anything. something you need to understand about the U.S. military and its capabilities. And I'm not divulging any secrets here. We could have taken out the people that we took out, okay? We could have done everything that we did with a push of a button at various central commands. All right? That's how high-tech our military is right now. We don't need boots on the ground. And I know there's a lot of guys and girls out there that, you know, they want, you know, they're into that rah, rah, rah. Okay? Hoorah! You know? And that's cool. And I've got, you know, and like I say, I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. I've been, like, intricately involved in different things. You know, I've known and hung out with snipers. You know, well, our guys, good guys. You know, U.S. military I'm talking about. And all I'm telling you is that the military-industrial complex, I mean, let's play it again.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
The disastrous rise of misplaced power exists. Dwight David Eisenhower, President of the United States and a general in the military, 60 years ago, warning. And you have any idea what DARPA has advanced since then? You don't. And that's why the title of the show, people don't understand Socio-Economic-Geo-Politics. They don't get it. They can't even conceive the size of the world. Well, I've rotated around the world. Okay? You know, I've been all over this country. You know, most people, their travel is like a vacation or a trip to visit somebody or something. No, I've lived and worked in L.A., New York, D.C., you know, Philly. Yeah, it's hard to believe, but yeah, I've moved around in all kinds of other places too. I'm older than I may look. I don't know what I look like. It's hard to say. I see the same face in the mirror all the time, you know. I don't know. Some people say I'm an immortal. The back of one of my books. Somebody wrote that. I don't know. The point of the matter, it doesn't matter, you know, what kind of woo-woo thing you want to believe or not. You know, the story is what the story is. Reality is reality. The truth is the truth. And so, military-industrial complex is out to just take our money. All right? It's hypocrisy for profit. I mean, don't you get it? And these politicians, they're claiming to have a moral standards or beliefs to which their behavior simply doesn't conform to. It's all pretense. All right? And the media and politicians, they're just marionettes. I mean, that's not like even really an opinion. You know, it's just the way it is. If you're like the slightest bit aware today. But anyway, back to this economic thing, which I want to end on. We're in really big trouble this year. Okay? Forget about some red wave and, you know, and all this other nonsense. Well, it's not nonsense. It's serious stuff. Look at those coal trucks. A flu that never ends. Climate change, blaming climate change for a nor'easter storm. or hurricanes that been happening since the beginning of time. It's just that there weren't cities in Florida in those days or around the Gulf. This wasn't occupied. You know, the Native Americans were migratory people, but even they themselves weren't here between 10 and during the Younger Dryas period, some 10 to 12,000 years ago, when everything was flash frozen. I've talked about that before. They found the woolly mammoths with undigested food in their stomachs. You know, children, at least we used to be taught about saber-toothed tigers. They used to live here in the U.S. of A., the former United States. You think a bear is like scary monster? Well, there used to be this like short-nosed bear that was like a real monster. It towered over the tallest bear you could imagine. Those things just became extinct like 10, 12,000 years ago. There were no humans here. They talk about the Clovis people. Do you understand? This for all practical purposes, life on this in North America, was wiped out completely. People don't understand. There were miles of ice above like New York City and stuff. Yeah? There must be a cop or something. You see how everybody's going slow all of a sudden. That's the real speed limit. You see what that's going? So now you understand. You see that's 25 miles an hour. But when you see those going, whang, they're going like 60. And this is a neighborhood. Feeding that electric plant with coal, right? For those Tesla vehicles. And the vegans, like I was saying about vegetarianism and stuff. Yeah, I eat vegetables. I grow them in my backyard. All right? But it's CO2 that makes them grow. Yeah. And you breathe oxygen. No. And 0.004 CO2 ain't no problem. We could go up to 0.005. We'd be fine. We'd be better off. Because then they wouldn't have to mess with the crops. Do all that GMO crap. Because there'd just be natural bounty and more fresh oxygen. The more oxygen, the better. Do you ever notice those farm kids? When they, come, the ones that live out in the farm, they come in and they're already like the bigger dudes and the better football players and stuff. Yeah, because they're out in that, oxygen rich, right? Natural food stuff, area. Like I say, sometimes you just have to look at the obvious to find the truth. But back to the economy. The government is lying to you about inflation, and the government is lying to you about job numbers. Our economy is on the verge of collapse. Our power grid, they talk about they want to fix the infrastructure. And in these infrastructure bills is like a very small amount of money. And a lot of that money goes to stupid things like maybe fixing a bridge that's in some congressional district that, to repay a favor or to like help Amtrak out. Right? But they're not talking about the fact that we have high tension wires and frozen lines because they bought in so much into the global warming thing that was disproved like a decade and a half ago already. Right? That's why they changed it to climate change. That they don't understand that you get ice on the wires and trees fall on the wires and suddenly you have power down, grid down situations. We're looking at in the coming year, 2 years, maybe 3 years at best. I don't know. Any time now, right? The perfect storm. Grid down, perhaps possibly even a CME, Carrington type event. Look that up, all right? Economic collapse, Western civilization falling. And people are worrying about pronouns and wokeism and who Joe Rogan has on his show, and you're got caught up in the cult of personality of a particular political candidate, and you're donating money or charging it to your credit card so you could join a new social media platform, as if we don't have enough already, right? I'm sorry, I got to come right out and say that one. Hey, Trump, stop it. Stop your social media platform. You're just diluting the water more. Didn't everybody move over together? I mean, wasn't that the purpose? I mean, what the? But the big one is financial, is the cost of things, the cost of living, inflation. And I was saying yesterday, so I needed to get some stuff, some of that, it's like a liquid rubber in a can. I broke down and bought some because I had to do something because we're going to get rain. And I'm like, it's too cold, but it was just warm enough yesterday to spray that stuff and it would dry in time, that I'm hoping I could like plug a few areas, because it was out of control last week when it rained. I mean, it was drip, 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 drip into my bedroom. Yeah, that's how bad it was. So as we're pulling up into the Ace Hardware store, why not give them a plug instead of the box stores? I like Ace. Why not? I'm not sponsored by them. Right? They're friendly people, though. And I noticed that they had things out, everything from rock salt, but there was a lot of big bags. Like, I guess they're starting to pile up the bags of soil to get ready for spring planting. But boy, are they early, because last year, we had snow. We had frost here the second week. Frost the first week of May and some snow the second week of May. Because I remember I keep a book, it's a paper, book. You could see it. I got paper stacked on it, but it's a little journal. And that's how I know they lie about the weather too, because I have like 3 or 4 different thermostats out there, right? And all those thermostats, some are digital, some are just like analog. And they all show the same temperature, right? And I have them at the same levels and all that kind of stuff. And I'll watch them change the weather on like the weather channels, like the records things, and they'll say it was, the previous month was the warmest month. And I'm going, no, it wasn't, man. I have been keeping records every day for, almost a decade. What are you Why are you lying? Why are you lying and putting it into the record? But anyway, these people are starting to pile up, and they've got the dirt, soil, dirt, And I was telling the person I drove up with, I said, you see that stuff there? Look at all those various different types of soil. There's all kinds of soil. Miracle Grow, stuff with certain kind of fertilizer, stuff that's just straight ahead potting soil. All the different stuff. I know all that stuff because that's my thing. I showed you I garden in my backyard. I have a big garden. I produce a lot of stuff. And I've been doing it for a long time now. The prices on those bags in front of there were double what they were last year. Double. The price of things like steaks. I don't eat steaks. I have this. Well, I have this gallbladder issue that I still don't even know what the hell's going on with it. So I'm just eating this kind of diet of, I'm off processed foods, red meats, and things like that. Fat things with fat, high fatty foods and sugars and stuff. I put that little butter thing in there because you got to have a little bit of something. Otherwise, your gallbladder won't work, because the purpose of the gallbladder is to like squeeze out. I don't want to get into the detail, but I mean, it's used to pull. It needs fat. It operates under fat to pull vitamins A, D, E, and K or something like that out of it. Fat soluble vitamins. Anyway, that's a whole nother show. So, I don't eat a lot of these things, but I go myself. I walk to there's a grocery store within walking distance. It's like 1.5 miles round trip or something like that. When the weather's decent, I walk down there for exercise and to get my stuff. And I've watched the prices just go through the roof. And everything's like that. I mean, and this just didn't start right away. It's been happening and building for a long time. It's like when I first started to notice they were selling like cars with 100,000, used cars with 100,000 miles on, and they were selling them for like 10 grand. It's like if you had 100,000 miles on your car years ago, you'd be lucky if you could get a couple $100 for it. If it had 100-some thousand miles on it. And there's some people are going buying these for like 10 grand or more. But no matter where you look, it doesn't matter what area it is. If it's steaks, automobiles, soil, real estate, right? Whatever. You name a field, whatever, and it's inflation. So the government is lying to you. But they're not just lying to you like they do sometimes with unemployment numbers or when they do jobless rate, or they say how many new jobs there were in the previous quarter or something like that. And they kind of fudge the numbers a little bit. Then a couple months later, they revise that number. It's like they do with the GDP. If it's like near a primary or an election time, it'll be a higher GDP number. But then after the election, they'll revise that number down, right? Or they'll say more jobs were created right before the primary, but then after the primary, they'll revise that number down. They lie, all right? They lie for a living, okay? Do you understand that? It's not, this isn't some great, revelation here. It's hypocrisy for profit. I mean, this country is basically, it's a corporatocracy, and the media and politicians are marionettes of the people that pay their salaries, right? The commercials, political campaign donations, right? Lobbyists, special interest, and like I said, even the communist Chinese, among others. But what's going on right now with the economy, this big lie. So I used to think when I heard the climate change thing, I was really concerned about that such a major lie was being repeated by all the media. When I knew the science, because I had been to all these places, all right, over the years, and I knew the hard science, and I've spoken with the scientists. Right. And I've been on the ground at these spots. Right. And I showed pictures of the Amazon and different things like that. And I saw the exaggeration and the lies. And I said, this is ridiculous. And when you've lived long enough to know that nor'easters happen, and you watch an announcer on a major network saying, this nor'easter is a good example of what climate change holds for the future. It's a nor'easter, buddy. These hurricanes will be more frequent or whatever. It's like, how do you know? I saw one person one time. I said this once on a podcast. It was a long time ago. I saw a news announcer out in California when they were having wildfires, saying this is the worst wildfire in California history. And I'm like, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Cry for the people who unfortunately built their houses out in this forest that wasn't managed properly by, the California Forestry Service or whatever they go by. But laugh at the idea that history? What history? Roman history? Like I said, 10, 12,000 years ago, there wasn't even any light. Life was extinguished here. So what history? How do you know? Lightning flashes and the whole concept of forestry, that's the natural way to clear that the cycle of forest growth and regrowth. Burns out the brush, opens up the canopy so new growth could come up. Because otherwise those dead trees just stand there or they fall, right? And so forest management, if you're going to live in an area like that, you need to clear out all of that brush naturally to prevent forest fires like Smokey the Bear used to say. So these people are whacked out of their minds. And that stuff used to drive me nuts when I would hear them say that stuff because I knew they were lying or repeating something they heard in grade school by some whacked out teacher that was maybe reading from a textbook and didn't know better. I don't know. Or a college professor who was brainwashed, right? And when I say brainwashed, I don't mean like put under some weird machine with a circular thing going around. I mean, they were taught it too. In other words, we're like couple generations into this hogwash, this revisionist history. But the climate change lie is bad enough. And then we've got this, suddenly in the year 2022, we can't kill a virus. That's like a mind blower, but I don't even want to go there. That's something fishy about that, okay? That's the year 2022. Now, I know if you're a youngin', if you're like 20, that might be, you don't know any better. But if you're old enough, you go, this is the future, man. One of these trucks stopped. Oh, it's a garbage truck. That's right. Today's garbage day. Get my garbage bag. Don't forget to get it. Anyway, but this economic thing is a big deal. In other words, the jobless rate is way, way higher than they're saying. And at the same time, inflation is like ridiculously higher than they're saying. And so they were giving out what they call helicopter money or whatever, the past couple years with this whole plague thing. And so people were getting by because the unemployed were getting all this extra free money. The companies, small businesses were getting these loans that they basically weren't having to pay back. So they were able to keep the people that weren't on unemployment employed. And then the average person was getting up to $3,000 or some kind of stuff in free cash, which was, I'll tell you, I used it. Of course, I put it to good use. I put it into my garden. I put some of it into the roof, but it didn't help. Wasn't enough. But I mean, I didn't go buy anything frivolous with it. I've really put it to good use. I put it towards my property and things that over the long haul would help. But see, that's over now. The unemployment thing is like run its course. So that money's running out. That so-called, money for small businesses, those accounts are starting to dry up. That money's like starting to be, emptied. And of course, they haven't given us any more free money, and there's no intention of it. Now, the very poor have got this new child tax credit, which is free money. For every kid, they get something like $250 to $300, depending on their age, up to the age 17. So if you're living in poverty and you have 3 kids under a certain age, like under 5 and stuff, you're getting almost $1,000. But if you have like 4 kids and they're over 5, up till they're 17 or so, you're getting $1,000 extra. Child, it's not a tax credit because it's actually a cash payment. It's not a credit. So that's the old-fashioned welfare state. So this is the thing. You either live at the level of welfare, right, below the poverty line, or you better be making like high 6 figures to 7 figures. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. This is a live show. I felt a sneeze coming on. If I wouldn't have blown my nose, that would have been a disaster. So what are people going to do? So if you're poor, you're okay. You're still getting your EBT/food stamps. You're getting money for your children, which I'm sure these people aren't spending on their kids. Not all of them. So they're going to survive. Right? And they don't have to pay taxes. If you live below the poverty line, you don't have to even file taxes. So there's no money going into the government from there. People have these exorbitant student loans that they put on. It's like they've postponed that till May again. But, that's, cryptocurrency, people talk about that, but it's digital, What if there's a grid down situation? How are you going to access your digital currency? Right? I mean, it's a very precarious situation, when you've got this sun that's going through a cycle at the same time. And a lot of people just don't take that serious. The idea that the sun has these cycles, and we basically are so dependent upon satellites and our grid. And when they talk about infrastructure, they're not talking about putting like the entire United States grid underground in conduit with like lead line to prevent an EMP or a CME from taking down the power. It would take 100 years it took 100 years to build this infrastructure. It would take at least 100 years to rebuild it, to, retool and, because back then you had all these immigrants around the turn of the century that, you had crews all over the country, in the hundreds building all these things. You've seen, if you haven't seen these old black and white videos of these people building skyscrapers and stuff like that, and highways and rail lines and stuff like that, but they don't talk about the high tension wires, the power grids, right? And these transformers and stuff. I've been in a lot of towns, like I said, and a transformer blows. Sometimes they don't even have one on hand. And I've been without power already for 24 hours in a college town, like a modern town, where the whole town was just out of power for almost 24 hours. And they've had shorter ones, here and there. Where I live right now, we've had power outages from time to time. We have our power grid is really in bad shape. But it's not something that you can just pass a bill and say, hey, we're going to fix this and it's going to be all copacetic within the next 10 years. No. And so people are all into their apps and what new kind of smartphone, what new tech's coming out, cryptocurrency, this, that, the other. It's all digital. It's all dependent upon the grid. And it's all dependent upon people maintaining that grid. And we have a new breed of people coming up who haven't been taught trades, because people have been given college loans. Go to college. And so they go to college and they graduate with some degree in some kind of like social services or something. Instead of going to trade school and learning how to be a lineman, an electrician, a plumber, right? Construction worker, like real jobs, real respectable work, right? Stuff that means something, do something. People who do things, people who keep the country going, right? Far more important to society than somebody sitting in an office passing papers or sending emails back and forth or sitting in a conference room watching some PowerPoint presentation and talking about pronouns and what you can and cannot do. And don't dare ask the girl out in the next office because that's sexual harassment or something. HR is going to fire you if you smile at a pretty girl or something. I mean, come on, be serious. Now, this country has a lot of serious problems. And just to end it back to where I began with Joe Rogan, the man who sold the world. You know, that was a weird moment in time that just came out of nowhere. And I guess maybe he was blindsided by it too, and he didn't know how to react, and he didn't realize. Like there's certain moments in history, right, that just happen. And that was one of those moments in time, like a key moment in time that will never come again. And it came, and I guess he was just dumbfounded by it. He reacted wrong, and it's, man, the man who sold the world. But I don't blame him. I understand where he's coming from. I guess, you know, he just wasn't thinking. I'd hate to say it. Maybe he was stoned. I don't know. I hope not. Imagine that. The man who sold the world because history came and put this burden on his shoulder and he was just too high to realize it. I know there's a lot of people out there pissed at me for saying that, but you know what? I don't care because it's the truth. Not the truth about the pot or anything like that. It's about the moment in time. I watched his video, man, and and everything I said was absolutely true. Right? You saw it. I don't care. Yeah, they could put disclaimers on my shows, and I don't care if there's people, I'll put on somebody else if I have a controversial guest. Controversial guest. Freedom of speech. So yeah, between that, the climate fraud, all this nonsense going on, the pandemic that'll never end, and the government lying to you about this economy that's on the verge of collapsing like you could never imagine. We're not talking like the 2008 type of thing. That they're gonna bail out something and this, that, the other. No, we're talking about total, absolute collapse. And the average person is simply not prepared. And we're not, and nobody's paying attention because they're not, the smash and grab and opportunistic looting and the gangs running free and a couple million people coming into the border. They're just letting it's like free fall Mad Max world. And just because it hasn't reached your cul-de-sac gated community or your doorman building yet, or your lucky place where you might live in a suburb somewhere, it's coming to a place near you because they didn't cover what happened in South Africa. In South Africa, once they got done looting the cities, they started going to the outskirts of town and started to loot the distribution centers and the suburb areas. And that's what's coming down the pike. Because people go crazy when they can't eat. Because they don't know how to grow a garden. They don't understand you plant a seed and it grows. So what I'm telling you is you've got to resist, and that means that's peaceful resistance. Do nothing. Don't donate to these campaigns. Don't watch the news because you're donating to the news readers, to your opposition party, so to speak. All right? Wake up, people. Wake up. All right? The answer to this is to do nothing. That's resistance. Anyway, take care.
Good morning.
You can go to my crappy website, ROCKFLUX.com, TonyCaravanLive.com. It's just a basic website. It's nothing fancy there. Eventually I'll build it up, but at least it has links to all the various things. So you can get some hoodies or shirts and stuff with phrases like you don't know what you don't know, or, everything you know is wrong, game over. Great solar stuff. I have stuff to get you ready in case the power goes out. Check it out. It's not just about solar. Some of the stuff's just power backup and other things. And then there's a couple of my books. Then What was my latest book. Codex was the one right before that. I've got 10 books. I've got 50 songs. Listen to my music. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Music. You can ask your Echo Dot. Play the music at Tony Caravan. It's like 50 songs. If you hear one you don't like, say skip that one. You'll find something you like out of the 50. Anyway, take care. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.